It is 5 a.m. I'm Jay Harper with your top stories. Hang on, we've got that weekend forecast as well as your first traffic report coming up. One person is dead after an attack on a synagogue near Detroit. The man who drove a truck into Temple Israel in West Bloomfield died after the truck caught on fire inside the building, and then he got into a shootout with security. No one in the synagogue was seriously hurt, and all the children in a preschool there did make it out safely. The attacker has been identified as 41-year-old Ayman Mohammed Ghazali, a naturalized U.S. citizen from Lebanon. More from ABC's chief investigative correspondent, Aaron Katersky.
This synagogue, Temple Israel, had recently partnered with the FBI to do an active shooter training. There were armed guards at the synagogue, and that's what synagogues and other places of worship feel they need to do right now because they are under threat. In fact, the rabbi of the synagogue recently spoke to our station WXYZ in Detroit about how the war in Iran was heightening the threat to his community.
Now, a security checkpoint at Philadelphia International Airport has been temporarily closed amid staffing concerns during the partial government shutdown, and travelers are feeling the impact. ABC's Becca Hendrickson is there with more.
The partial shutdown has been going on since February. PHL says it closed the security checkpoint at Terminal C in order to properly staff the other checkpoints. Joe Shooker says there are 800 TSA agents at PHL, and some of them are forced to find second jobs or stay home for childcare because they can't pay their bills.
I can't come to work. I can't afford gas, or I can't pay my child care.
A TSA spokesperson said in a statement, as staffing constraints arise, TSA evaluates on a case-by-case basis and adjusts operations accordingly.
Now let's turn to the market numbers report this morning. It's brought to you by Beacon Capital Management. They are online at beaconcm.com. For this morning's market preview, here is Jim Ryan.
Iranian strikes on two oil tankers sent crude prices soaring toward $100 a barrel Thursday and left stock prices in the tank. The Dow Jones fell 740 points to close below 47,000 for the first time this year. The S&P slid 1.5%. The Nasdaq Composite gave up 1.75%. After dropping for weeks, mortgage rates have done it about face. The average 30-year note rising to just over 6.1%. The specter of higher inflation could make the Fed less likely to cut interest rates. The overturning of President Trump's tariffs has Costco anticipating a refund and one customer demanding a cut. Matthew Sokov filed a class action lawsuit against the discount retailer in Illinois yesterday. Friday the 13th, today is lucky for Chipotle fans. Anyone with a tattoo, even a temporary one, can take advantage of a buy one entree, get one free deal this afternoon.
That is the latest news. We've got your traffic and weather report coming up. I'm Jay Harper, WTN News. A little less than an hour ago, a crash reported that has the right lane blocked on I-440 eastbound just before the I-24 exit. That's exit 7. Aside from that, things are looking smooth on this Friday, the 13th morning. We've got your traffic every 10 minutes every morning on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Well, good morning to you, everyone. It is 5:05 on Super Talk 99.7. I am Brian Wilson, your friend and radio buddy, and for Dan Mandis, who will return after the weekend. He's going to get here, and about the same time the cold weather is going to get here. He'll be back on Monday. I don't know if you've heard this or not, if you've been paying attention to the weather, but man alive, it's going to get cold again. We sort of thought we might have gotten through the worst of it, but here comes another cold snap on Monday. We're going to have temperatures, the overnight temperature and the overnight low, 27 on Monday, 22 on Tuesday, Wednesday, 31. So that's the bad news. The good news is, it's going to be a really nice day today in the 60s, mid-60s. Saturday, if you've got work to do in the yard, see, this is what you need to do. If you put your plants out too soon, Saturday go and take them up and put them somewhere where they're going to be protected, because they're absolutely going to get hit on Monday. So right now, 38 degrees today. We're looking for a high, somewhere around 65 degrees. That's not going to be too bad. So hang on, and it'll be fine today. Get your work, your yard work, or anything you need to do outside done on Saturday. And, Sunday we're going to have a little rain. But then get ready, because it's going to be cold on Monday. Got a lot going on in the world, obviously. But it's hard to keep. It's like so much stuff coming in. Let's talk about Iran. First of all, I heard this soundbite of Trump talking to Brian Kilmeade on his radio program, and he was asking him about escorts. And there's a lot packed into this little soundbite with Donald Trump. Take a listen.
Well, we would do it if we needed to, but we would do it if we...
Talking about escorting the tankers here. Let's make sure we set that up here. Talking about, should we escort tankers through the Strait of Hormuz?
Well, we would do it if we needed to, but we would do it if we needed to. But, hopefully things are going to go very well. We're going to see what happens. A lot's going to be... We've already damaged them so badly. It would take years for them to ever rebuild. And we're going to be hitting them very hard over the next week.
That was the part that caught my ear. We're going to be hitting them real hard over the next week. So again, everybody wants to know about the timing of this thing, and the president has made it clear, short. We're not going to be there a long time. We're going to get through this. We need to move on to other things. There are a lot of reasons why he would like to get this thing wound up in a week. It's getting rough out there. It's a pretty tough environment. And Trump is also saying, that this will get worse for the Iranians if they don't seem to be quite getting the message.
The main thing is we have to win this thing, win it quickly, but win it. And there are many people, I'm just watching some of the news. Most people say it's already been won. It's just a question of when. When do we stop? We don't want to let it regrow, and ideally would like to see somebody in there that knows what they're doing. In other words, they can build a country. Now, one other thing, we can hit sections of Tehran and other places that if you do it, it'll be almost impossible for them to rebuild their country. And we don't want that. But we can hit electric, we could take apart their electric capacity within 1 hour, and it would take them 25 years to rebuild it. So ideally, we're not going to be doing that. Thank you very much.
Yeah, there are a lot of things that we can do. If we just wanted to be vindictive about it, but that's not the goal here. We want to leave as much of Iran intact as we possibly can, but we've got to dismantle the nuclear weapons program. We've got to dismantle the missiles. You see, people say, well, they never came up with it. The missiles, why is that such a big deal? They were going to get so many missiles that it was going to be impossible at some point for the military to go in and do what they need to do with regard to the nuclear stockpiles. So they had, it was getting time critical here. And there were a lot of good reasons. I've talked to people, thoughtful conversations, actually, just people I know around the country. How you feeling about this? Because I know a lot of people have concerns about this. I get it. And they say, well, I really feel bad about that school that got hit. Yeah, and that is really tragic. It really is truly tragic. And it appears that from what I'm hearing on that it was the military acting upon some outdated intelligence. And that's how that happened. At least that's the sort of preliminary read on that. Still, it's tragic. But I told them, I said, well, let me ask you a question. You know what would be worse than that, as bad as that is? And that's horrible. But you know what would be worse? If Iran was able to develop one nuclear weapon and fire it off at somebody. How many people would die in that? People lose sight of this thing. Everything that Trump is doing has, in my opinion, a valid national security backing to it. And there's a reason for it. It makes sense in the big picture of things. One of the smartest guys out there ever, former CIA director, former general, David Petraeus, is out there talking about it. This is a little long, but I thought it was a pretty quick overall assessment of where we are from a very sharp guy.
I think we're quite far along, actually. Obviously, we had enormous success, 40 liters in the first 40 seconds. As the president noted, and you have noted, we've largely taken down their air and ballistic missile defense. We can now fly really at will with our non-stealthy aircraft, not just the stealth B-2 and F-35, but the B-52, the B-1, other fighter bombers. We've had considerable success against their Navy, needless to say. We've taken down probably at least 70% of the missile launchers and a substantial amount of the stockpile. The missile strikes, as you also noted, way down. We're still going after the drones, and that's, I think, proven to be a bit more challenging, frankly. They have thousands of them in tunnels. We're parked on top of the launch sites, as you would imagine, going after them. But that does remain a challenge in various ways. A variety of other targets that we've taken out, of course, a lot of the regime forces, their headquarters, their subordinate leaders, large depots, bases, the naval bases, and so forth. So we're very well along in this. The problem is that there still are challenges there, and I think probably the biggest is the Strait. There still is a threat. 4 ships were attacked today. One of those along the way of the 14 that have been hit so far was hit by an unmanned surface vessel. There's the threat of short-range missiles. You can lay mines with other than mine layers. You can actually use fast boats and so forth. It depends on the type of the mine. There are some mines, reportedly less than 10, that have actually gone in the water. If we end up in a situation where they mine the strait, that will be very challenging as well. So I think the president's got a lot to calculate here. The markets really are hanging on his every word. Will we end it soon or will we end it later? And it's going to take time for the confidence to return for the CEOs of the shipping companies who are, after all, they're not responsible to the government, in truth. They're responsible to their shareholders, and they will be cautious about this. These super tankers are extraordinarily expensive, as are the LNG carriers and so forth, and little, if any, of that is moving through the Gulf right now.
All right, David Petraeus, I think a really fair and honest assessment of where we are from a guy who understands these kinds of things in a very good way. Let me just run through, if I can, some of the stories that are out there this morning. One of the more interesting stories about this I found today in the New York Post. Apparently, the president was active just after midnight this midnight today, just late last night. He tweeted out or X'd out a thing that said, "Watch what happens to these folks." President Trump issued a new threat, according to the New York Post, against the deranged scumbags of the Iranian regime, warning of unparalleled firepower on Friday. Trump's chilling message came after Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Mojtaba Khamenei delivered his first public remarks and after two extremists attacked a synagogue and a college in the U.S. on Thursday. We are totally destroying the terrorist regime of Iran, militarily, economically, and otherwise. Yet, if you read the failing New York Times, this is what gets him going. He wrote on Truth Social just after midnight, Iran's Navy is gone, the Air Force is gone, no missiles, drones, and everything are being taken out. Everything else is being decimated, and their leaders have been wiped from the face of the earth. It's a pet peeve. Decimated means they got 1 out of 10. So they've been obliterated, hopefully, not decimated. Hopefully a little better along than just decimated. But anyway, I digress. Let's see what else he's got. This thing says here. He says, watch what happens to these deranged scumbags today. They've been killing people all over the world for 47 years, and now I, as the 47th president of the United States, am killing them. What a great honor to do so. Thank you for your attention to this matter, Trump wrote. Okay. Energy Secretary Chris Wright, says that U.S. could soon be escorting tankers through the Strait of Hormuz, but they're not quite ready yet. Energy Secretary, this is from Fox Business. Energy Secretary Chris Wright on Thursday said that while the U.S. Navy may soon be in a position to escort oil tankers through the Strait of Hormuz to protect them, the Navy isn't ready to do so as yet. He said in CNBC Squawk Box, the tanker escorts through the Strait of Hormuz, a vital choke point in the shipping lanes through the Persian Gulf, will be on the table in the near future as the air campaign against Iran's military capabilities continues. Shipping traffic in the strait has largely ground to a halt due to the risk of Iranian attacks. It'll happen relatively soon, but it can't happen now. We're simply not ready. That's problematic. This is something that I think most people would agree, most experts say, was pretty predictable that this would be something they would do, even though it's sort of against their own best interests. The Energy Secretary was asked in the interview whether the Navy would be in a position to begin escorting tankers through the strait by the end of the month. And Wright said, yes, I believe that is very likely the case. This being the 13th, that would mean maybe in another 15 days, another 10 or 12 days, who knows. But Trump officials, this is again, Navy escort ships through the strait, perhaps an international coalition, as soon as it is militarily possible. This comes from Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent in an interview with Sky News broadcast Thursday. Calls have been growing for naval protection in the strait amid concerns that Iran is laying mines in the Narrow, strategically important waterway that handles about 20% of the world's oil supply, and I would add natural gas as well. There have been, of course, some hits that we've taken, and some of them seem to be related to what's going on there. Maybe some of them not. Let me explain what I mean. U.S. military said Thursday that a KC-135 tanker, basically, was lost while flying not over Iran, but over Iraq, and says the incident was not due to hostile or enemy fire. U.S. Central Command said in a statement that the incident involved 2 aircraft, and it occurred in what is considered friendly airspace. One of the aircraft went down in western Iraq. The second landed safely. Now, that's a very interesting thing. Did they bump into each other? I mean, what problem, and my guess is, you're talking about tankers. Tankers, have to work with other aircraft in very close proximity. Sounds like something went wrong during a refueling effort. If I can read between the lines, that's what it feels like to me. It's probably related, but it wasn't hostile action that took it out. What it sounds like is it was an accident. An accident like you might have if you were training. This is the thing that I want to point out, and a lot of people don't think of it in this way. anytime you move that many, ships and airplanes and bombs are dropping, and you got people moving around, heavy machinery, and a lot of people, you're just going to have the private sector would be called industrial accidents. It's the pace, it's the tempo. You're moving heavy machinery in close quarters. Things are going to happen that are just because you're moving that much manpower and machinery around. It happens outside of the conflict area. It's just that those kind of things do happen when you're moving that kind of equipment and manpower and in a very dangerous environment. These things. Here's a perfect example of what I'm talking about. This has nothing to do with the problem that's going on in Iran, except that this is one of the aircraft carriers that was assigned to it. USS Gerald Ford, operating in the Red Sea, experienced a non-combat fire Thursday that was successfully doused. Here's the quote: "There is no damage to the ship's propulsion plant, and the aircraft carrier remains fully operational." But apparently this was a fire that started in the laundry room. I mean, that could happen anywhere. So there is going to be some of that, and I think we need to be prepared for that. Iran's supreme leader is not being seen on camera. Mojtaba Khamenei sounded a defiant tone in a statement. He appeared in Iranian state media, but he did not deliver it personally. He wasn't on camera. The statement was a written statement that was read by state media. Khamenei, in his first address since he was appointed supreme leader on Sunday, vowed to attack U.S. bases in the Middle East and keep closed the Strait of Hormuz, the narrow passage through which a fifth of the world's oil and liquefied natural gas transit. He said it would open up new fronts in the war. Iran has responded to U.S. and Israeli attacks by broadening the conflict. So there you have it. The younger Khamenei was picked as Iran's new political religious leader after his father was killed in the opening moments of all this, but he has not been seen publicly. Now, you got to wonder, is that because they want to keep him safe and secure? They don't want him coming out of the rabbit hole? Or is it because he's hurt, which is the very, it's a pretty firm rumor floating around that he's been injured in some level. The question is, how much has he been injured? So, a lot of stuff going on. There have been, of course, real concerns about what's happening domestically because, we have, unfortunately, I think we got some people who are willing to act on behalf of the Islamic State in the United States. Thank you, Joe Biden. We'll get into that in the 6 o'clock hour in a big way. And also talk about a lot of other stuff. We need to take a break now, though. It is 22 minutes past the hour of 5 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Coming up at the bottom of the hour, another shooting on a college campus. Also a sexual predator convicted in Sumner County and a suspected road rage shooting in Midtown. All that's coming up at the bottom of the hour on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
It is 27 minutes past the hour, 5 o'clock, Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Brian Wilson in the chair for Dan Mandis, back on Monday. Joan Jones is taking the day off. Jay Harper, I don't know if you can hear me or not, but it's good to have you on board today. I guess he's busy.
Yes, I'm here, Brian.
Okay, there you are.
Yes, I am kind of getting ready for the bottom of the hour, but great to see you / hear you as well.
Yeah, how's it going, man? I haven't talked to you in a while.
I know,
Everything good?
it's been a while. Yeah, keeping busy. I do a lot of play-by-play for basketball, baseball, softball, and, just wrapped up a basketball tournament doing softball at Motlow State later this afternoon.
Well, okay. Listen, man,
busy.
it's good to have you in here today. We greatly appreciate so much going on. Sam is pushing all the blinky buttons, and Sam, I think, is in a bad mood today. I'm not sure.
Bah humbug.
I'll give you the opportunity to say it if you want to.
I'll keep that on the personal record, not the public one.
All right. Anyway, we're glad to have Sam in there pushing the blinky buttons, and he'll get some coffee, and the morning, his mood, I hope, will improve as we get through the morning. Nothing like having a surly producer. Want to mention that this is, of course, if you haven't looked at the calendar, you might want to know that it is Friday the 13th. That's right. That's right. It is Friday the 13th. For better or for worse, that's what we've got. The president of the United States says that it's going to be a bad day in Iran. Friday the 13th going to be a very, very bad day. He was sort of hinting that something is in the offing. I don't know what it is, but we're going to be alert to it. And as I mentioned, not only have we got to focus on what's going on in Iran, but we need to focus what's happening domestically, because there are people that it seems are who disagree with what's happening, or maybe been put up to it by the Islamic State themselves. It's hard to know, but it's sort of very suspicious. A lot of domestic attacks have been taking place. We'll get into that in the 6 o'clock hour. And we got so much going on. Let's see what else we've got. We're going to talk about waste, fraud, and abuse, and we'll get into the latest on the SAVE Act. I found a clip today of Chuck Schumer that from, I don't know, many years ago that you're not going to believe. You're simply just not going to believe it. When my friend Chris Plant says that Democrats have, no standards at all except for double standards. This is a perfect example of it, and you do not want to miss hearing that coming up a little bit later in the 6 o'clock hour. Still got a lot of ground to cover, but as Jay said, it's time for the news on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
It is 5:30. I'm Jay Harper with your top stories. Stand by. Traffic and weather are on the way. 2 people are dead and 2 students at a Virginia university are hurt after an attack on an ROTC class. One of those killed is the attacker. ABC's Jacqueline Lee has the story.
A deadly campus shooting at Old Dominion University in Norfolk, Virginia, being investigated as an act of terror. Authorities say shots rang out just before 11 a.m.
All of a sudden we heard a commotion. A lot of people rumbling, starting to get up. We started running, and that's when we heard gunshots.
The FBI identifying the gunman as 36-year-old Mohammed Jallo, a former member of the Virginia National Guard.
Army Lieutenant Colonel Brandon Shaw was shot and killed in the attack. The FBI says that ROTC students subdued the shooter, Jalal, and rendered him no longer alive. That is the way they quoted that. Back here in Tennessee, a Hendersonville man's been convicted by a jury for repeatedly sexually abusing children over more than a decade in Tennessee, as well as the state of Texas. Matthew Cody Ball, 36 years of age, was found guilty yesterday in Sumner County Circuit Court of continuous sexual abuse of a child, 9 counts of child rape, 1 count of rape, 2 counts of aggravated sexual battery, and 1 count of statutory rape by an authority figure. The jury deliberated for only 20 minutes. It was a 4-day-long trial. And also, Metro Nashville police said that it is investigating a potential road rage shooting in West Nashville. Police responded to the 2300 block of West End Avenue at about 8:15 last night for reports of a shooting. Police got there, said they found a man suffering from a gunshot wound in a car that crashed outside of the Papa John's there on West End. The victim was taken to an area hospital with what police believe are non-life-threatening injuries. Police are investigating the shooting as a possible road rage incident. There are no suspects at this time. That is the latest news. We've got traffic and weather next. I'm Jay Harper, WTN News. The lone crash this morning, Robertson County, the location, I-24 eastbound just before exit 19. The crash is actually at the Sango Road overpass. Also keep in mind, if you plan on heading downtown this weekend, the SEC men's basketball tournament going on down there all the way through Sunday. So more traffic than usual downtown this weekend. We've got your traffic every 10 minutes every morning on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
5:37 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. It's Brian Wilson in the chair. Glad that you're with us here. Dan Mandis returns on Monday. Just a programming note. I'll actually be back on the air Monday, filling in for Chris Hand, who's had to take a day off. So that'll be coming up on Monday. It's amazing. I thought I was retired, but no, I'm having a great time. It is, it's very interesting. When you've been doing what I've been doing for so many years, and then, you come to a point of retirement, you don't stop looking at what's going on in the world. You don't just, turn off the TV and not stay plugged in. And after, being in a job where it's my job to sort of do an analysis and to offer my thoughts about it and give opinions, because I'm an opinion guy, not a news guy, really. I need to do that. As I've jokingly said, but it's really not much of a joke. The bulldog gets real tired of hearing me rant, while I'm walking. I can't believe, and the bulldog just doesn't like it. So I'm glad to have some outlet for all of those frustrations, and I really do appreciate the opportunity to be on the show when people need to take a few days off, well-deserved time off. Let's look very quickly at where we are right now with regard to the energy situation. Right now in West Texas Intermediate crude is selling for $95 a barrel. That's up. It was in the 80s yesterday. 95. Brent is right around 100. It's been up and down a little bit this morning. Natural gas is up as well. So there is a great deal of volatility and concern about the markets. Don't like uncertainty. And, how does this then translate is the question into what I am, in my backyard, which is going down to fill up the tank of my car. Let's see, here we go. Tennessee gas on average this morning around the state, the average is $3.24 a gallon. If you need diesel, oh my Lord, $4.82 a gallon. Nashville is the city of Nashville itself. A gallon of gas will cost you $3.29 on average. For diesel, $4.96, basically $5. 1 month ago, before all this started, the price of gasoline was $2.53 a gallon, and diesel was going for $3.34. So, this is, you are going to have an impact. Here's what I would say to you, and I know this concerns so many people. I mean, this is where you live. But you got to break for a while on the gas prices, and I have every expectation that this is going to be a short-lived, spike in prices for oil and gasoline and diesel and all of that, natural gas. I think it's going to be rather short-term. It is challenging to secure the Strait of Hormuz. And what was interesting is all of the comments today that said, well, we are not quite ready to do that. That's baffling to me. I don't understand that. Anybody knew that this was a possibility. Maybe they thought that maybe the sense was that the Iranians would not do this because it's sort of against their own personal interest. But we've got some serious, challenges ahead in trying to open up the Strait of Hormuz. If you've ever looked at the map, because this is such a strategic. There are two strategic flashpoints in the world. One is the Straits of Taiwan, and the other one is the Strait of Hormuz. Little narrow gap. It's only 30 miles wide, but 20%, 1/5 of the world's oil supply goes through that little area and into the world. And when you take 20% of the world's oil supply and you do away with it, then and say and just shut it down instantly, the markets are going to spike. I believe the military will get this under control. The Iranians are very outclassed. They're now resorting, as they often do, to asymmetry warfare, the laying of mines and that kind of stuff. And so they're doing their very best to get that. They've taken out some 30 of these mine-laying boats, but any small boat, the go-fast boats that the Iranian Revolutionary Guard has, They can be used for mine laying, and it only takes one. And if you get one in the water and get lucky, then you take out a tanker, then you're going to see these oil prices go up even more. But I don't believe it will be long-lived. I think you're going to be fine if you can just hang in there for a little bit. And as painful as it is, I'm of the belief that we're doing the right thing here. I am. I think that we were getting to critical mass with Iran. Presidents in the past have tried to bop the bully on the nose, but never really went in to do what needed to be done. Somebody had to do it, and I think that it's going to happen a lot quicker than most people think. But why are the people in official Washington being so critical, even some Republicans? Well, because they're worried about the midterm elections. They can't see beyond the end of their own nose. You got to look strategically. Sometimes you got to step back and take the 30,000 view. Now, I wrote a thing on Facebook. It's at Brian Wilson Nashville. If you want to check it out, it's still there. A lot of people looked at it at Brian Wilson Nashville. A lot of people shared it, but let me just read it because I tried to put down some things that I've been maybe not elegantly saying, but I've been thinking, and so sometimes when you write them down, it's a little clearer. So here we go. I know there are many with qualms about the foreign policy of the second Trump administration, but allow me to point out how this all appears to be happening on a timeline fully cognizant of the midterm elections. Let's review. Year one of the second term of Donald Trump was all about getting things lined up so that the economy is banging on all 8 cylinders. The only thing that saves the party in power in the midterm elections is a strong economy. The big, beautiful bill will bring along just that. Long before November, every American, I believe, will sense that things are better. We should have lower prices. We should have lower taxes. I believe gasoline will come down in time, and it won't be that long. We'll have a jumping economy and possibly lower interest rates. Now, the first half of year 2, which is where we are now, has been about bringing stability to the world's hotspots and making the United States the dominant world power. First, you go and you oust Maduro in Venezuela. The benefits are threefold. You stop the flow of drugs to the U.S., you force Cuba into the open, loving arms of the United States, and you redirect oil away from our great adversary on the world stage, China. Win, win, win. Second, you declare war on the narco-terrorists and get Mexico to do the things they should have been doing for a long time ago. This reduces corruption in the Western Hemisphere and makes our streets safer, and again, win-win. Third, you go after Iran. This brings peace and stability to the Mideast. It ends Iran's nuclear ambitions once and for all, with any luck at all. And, again, bonus, it redirects oil away from China. There's a whole lot of winning there. Each and every one of these things is in the national security interest of the United States. And to the nervous Nellies in the Republican Party who fear that such adventurism will hurt our chances in the midterm, I say, chill out a little bit. This can all be wrapped up in a time for a period of quiet prosperity before we get to November. Yes, we may not have a great outcome in the midterms, but that was always a distinct possibility. History is replete with examples of the party in power struggling during the midterms. But anyone who understands the ebbs and flow of national politics should see there is a method to what some perceive to be madness. The truth is, and listen, this is the key point, presidents only have the first 2 years of a term to accomplish big things. It takes new presidents who come in from ground zero and ramp up about 6 months to get going. Trump didn't have to do that because he'd been through that drill before. Trump had time to think and plan for round 2 and hit the ground running. And by the way, beyond the second 2 years, honestly, I've seen this so many times. You've got to watch the arc of how these things unfold. You're probably talking about a situation where the arc unfolds, that you really can't accomplish anything beyond year 2, and anything you do get is gravy. So you gotta sort of be very operationally fast in the early going, because you can never count on what's going to happen in the second 2 years of your term. When you do it consecutively, like let's say Obama did, you basically get 2 good years. You might get lucky in the midterm elections, as Democrats did then, and then you get a situation where it starts to become more difficult to accomplish anything. So he had a limited time, he had a plan, and at the end of the day, the thing that I think everybody should have a little bit of should relax a little bit about is, I think that he's going to be wrapped up. All of these things that are going on are international security, but they'll be wrapped up in time for there to be a period where things are calm and people start to sense the prosperity that comes with the big, beautiful bill. It's, I think, an interesting time on the world stage. A lot of these things needed to be done. We needed to take out the narco-terrorists. We needed to do something about Venezuela, and we needed to do something about Iran, because it was going to spiral out of control if we did not, and it had been spiraling out of control because the Bidens didn't do crap. So I get that there's nervousness about politics, and I get that there are people who have a little heartburn when you see bombs dropping, and I understand that. But as I said earlier in this hour, and it's the thing I keep coming back to, I think it's so important, it is that if you think that what you're seeing is bad, just imagine if Iran was able to launch one nuclear weapon. We understand, they admitted in the early going here that they had the refined uranium to build 11 bombs. It was getting close. It would have changed. What is happening now is an attempt to change the trajectory of the way things were going, where Iran is the number one sponsor of terrorism around the world. Absolutely, they are the number one problem. You go out there and you bop that bully on the nose. Maybe there's a regime change in Iran. Maybe the people rise up and demand that things be done differently. But at the very least, even if you don't get the regime change, and you may not, you got to defang Iran, because they do not have our best interest at heart. Now, as I mentioned a moment or two ago, there is a whole flurry of things happening in our country that need a lot of attention, and we need to have our head on a swivel, because things are happening in reaction. People who are sympathetic to the Islamic State are taking it out domestically in this country. There have been a number of incidents, including an attack on a synagogue yesterday in Michigan. We'll get into that in a greater way, I promise you, in just a few moments in the 6 o'clock hour. There's just so much stuff that needs to be covered here that you have to sort of spread it out over the period of time. Coming up also in the next hour, we're going to talk about where we are on DHS funding. And again, you do not want to miss these sound bites that I found from Chuck Schumer. What a duplicitous individual he is. The one thing over the years when I covered Capitol Hill, the one thing I came to hate more than anything is a politician who wets his finger to see which direction the wind is blowing. Well, today I need to take this position because this is the popular position. But did you really believe it, or were you just saying it because you thought it's what people wanted to hear? And now, you wake up on a new day, and the things you said before, you've completely forgotten about because they didn't mean anything to you. Well, he said some of those kind of things not long ago, and it's going to be very shocking to you, I think. On that note, it is 51 minutes past the hour of 5 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Coming up at the top of the hour, another prominent person has gone missing in the state of Arizona. Also, Cuba says it will release dozens of prisoners in the coming days. And in Antioch neighborhood, they have just been overwhelmed with car break-ins and thefts over the last 6 months. We'll have that story as well. That's all at 6 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
It is 56 minutes now past the hour of 5 o'clock. Super Talk 99.7. Brian Wilson in the chair, on the air for Dan Mandis, who returns on Monday. And we are joined today by Jay Harper and Sam pushing the blinky buttons. And Sam, I have it seems like you're having a rough day. Pookie, I'm really sorry you're having a rough day. But I've got the answer. Drink some more coffee.
I'm on it.
Drinking 2 to 3 cups of coffee a day. I don't think I can drink 2 to 3 cups of coffee. I would be wired. I would never go to sleep. 2 to 3 cups of coffee a day might be the sweet spot for lowering the risk of anxiety and depression. A new analysis of hundreds of thousands of adults reveal that moderate coffee consumption is linked to better mental health, while drinking excessive amounts may reverse those benefits. You got to find the sweet spot there. The findings published in the Journal of Affective Disorders. Do you have a copy? I think everybody has one of those sitting on the living room table. Mental health conditions like depression and severe stress affect millions of people worldwide, and public health experts are increasingly looking at daily diet as a way to help manage or prevent these conditions. Prior research on coffee and mental health has produced mixed results. Some past projects suggest that drinking coffee lowered the risk of depression, while others found no clear connection or even hinted at potential harm. Those earlier projects often looked at small groups of people or only captured a single snapshot in time. They also rarely separated coffee into specific types, like decaffeinated blends or instant granules. So they did a more detailed study of the matter, and They ultimately came up with the idea that if you're having trouble with anxiety and depression, you're a little low, it's a mood lifter. And 2 to 3 cups of coffee a day will help you get out of your funk. So, around you got the Mr. Bean thing down there, don't you, Sam?
I just polished up cup number 1, so.
Well, I'm having problems with I got one, I just drink coffee, the pod coffee that, that you do, the Keurig pods. That's what I drink. And my machine is messed up. I don't know what's going on. I'm supposed to get a good solid 10 ounces of coffee, and I'm getting like 4.
10 ounces? That's a cup?
Well, listen, I can tell you, there was a time and a place when I drank so much coffee that I got addicted. And getting addicted to coffee is not a good thing, because when you start to withdraw, you don't feel good at all. It's really quite something. So you got to find the right sweet spot there. Now, a little bit, 2 to 3 cups a day. I think if you go beyond that, I think it probably is a little detrimental, but it's your call. There you have it. The latest news on coffee. What morning show doesn't talk about coffee? Time for the news with Jay Harper at 59, well, let's call it 6 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Coming up on 1 minute past 6 a.m., I'm Jay Harper with your top stories. Stand by for weather and traffic. Across the state from the scene of Nancy Guthrie's disappearance, the search for another older person with some prominence is underway. While there are similarities, ABC's Jim Ryan says investigators find no evidence of a connection.
2 weeks after William McCaslin disappeared from his home in the Albuquerque foothills, searchers are practically at step 1.
That's the big issue, is we don't know which direction he went.
Search team member Lori Dodge.
Please check your Ring cameras if you live in the area.
The 68-year-old retired general who once headed the research laboratory at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base left home on February 27th and never returned.
Cuba says it will release dozens of prisoners in the coming days. Officials say the move comes as part of a humanitarian tradition and diplomacy with the Vatican. ABC's Dave Packer reports.
Cuba's foreign ministry says 51 prisoners will be released soon after serving significant parts of their sentences and maintaining good behavior. Officials say the decision reflects ongoing communication between Havana and the Vatican and comes ahead of Holy Week. The announcement follows recent diplomatic contacts, including a meeting between Cuban Foreign Minister Bruno Rodriguez and Pope Leo at the Vatican. It also comes as the island faces increased political pressure from the United States.
Back here in Middle Tennessee, an Antioch neighborhood has seen a high number of car break-ins and thefts over the last 6 months. News 2's Caitlin Quisenberry reports.
For Terry Newcomb, recent car break-ins are hard to ignore. Just yesterday, he says a neighbor up the street had items valued at $500 stolen from their unlocked vehicle.
Now he's locking his doors because he had a toolbox with his jumpsuit on top of it. They took his work boots and ransacked through his truck and stuff.
Terry says in recent weeks, neighbors on his street, Beaufield Court, have had their unlocked cars targeted, with people walking up driveways, including Terry's, to see if cars are unlocked.
But he went through all their cars. If their doors are unlocked, they went through them.
Data from Metro Police's crime map shows this isn't just happening on one street. In the last 180 days, there have been over 190 reports of vehicle break-ins and theft, all within a 2-mile radius of Beaufield Court. Sundays have seen the most reports, with Friday close behind.
Already, over 175 guns have been stolen from vehicles this year in Nashville. That's the latest news, traffic, and weather. There next. I'm Jay Harper, WTN News. We now have an injury crash in the Joelton area. This is Whites Creek Pike at Coopertown Road. Also in Williamson County near Franklin, I-65 northbound, just before that Paytonsville Road exit. That's exit 61. We've picked up a wreck there. And still dealing with the accident in Robertson County, I-24 eastbound, just before exit 19. The crash actually at the Sango Road overpass. We've got your traffic every 10 minutes every morning on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
6:06. Let's call it almost 6:07 on Super Talk 99.7. I'm Brian Wilson, checking in with you here this morning, filling in for Dan Mandis, who will return on Monday. He'll be tan, rested, and ready. It seems like he's having a good vacation. I've seen some pictures. We need to talk a little bit about what's going on not only in the Mideast, which we covered pretty extensively in the last hour, but also what's happening here in the United States domestically. There have been a number of attacks, and people need to have their head on a swivel. Comes at a time when the DHS is not being funded, the Department of Homeland Security. How in the world can the Democrats stand in the way of all that? We'll get into that a little bit here this morning. And again, you're just going to slap your forehead when you hear what Chuck Schumer used to say about the SAVE Act, which they are blocking. We'll get into that as well. Let me start with this. I found this in theblaze.com. Leaked intel warns of Iran's potential revenge plot to unleash terror on U.S. soil. Leaked intelligence bulletin reportedly warns that Iran may retaliate against the United States by launching a wave of terror attacks on American soil. The Daily Mail reports that it obtained a copy of the report, which said was a joint statement prepared by the FBI, the Department of Homeland Security, and the National Counterterrorism Center. Most of the government of Iran's attack plots in the United States involved the potential use of firearms. The bulletin reportedly warned that Iran prefers targeted assassinations of government officials over large mass casualty attacks. Those targets may include U.S. officials, dissidents, Jewish community leaders. According to intel officers, intended victims may be lured to other countries geographically closer to Iran, the report stated, according to the Daily Mail. The FBI believes Iran prefers to use radicalized individuals with a variety of ideological backgrounds with existing U.S. legal status or U.S. access. We've got a bunch in. We got a bunch of these people have been allowed into this country by the previous administration. Folks, if something bad happens and these sleeper cells carry out some kind of major terrorist attack here in this country, there's only one group of people that you can point the finger at and say they're responsible. And those are the Democrats who stood by Joe Biden while he left the door to this country wide open. I talked about it every day. People got tired of hearing me talk about how we had all of these people coming to the country we didn't know anything about. We didn't stop them and check them well, and a lot of them got into the country without ever coming in contact with anybody from DHS, ICE, or the Border Patrol. They just snuck in, the so-called gotaways. A million of them. We could have 1 million people in this country who were sent here that we don't know anything about. And it's all going to fall on them if there is a major... There have been some attacks, I would say. And so we'll see, I want to go through some of the stuff that's going on there. By the way, I've been checking because DHS is not funding. DHS is not funded. TSA today is sort of an interesting day in the life of a TSA agent. Today is payday, and they're not going to get paid. This is the first full paycheck they will have missed. I did reach out to Doug Crulin this morning over at B&A. Says the checkpoints this morning are looking pretty good. Wait times are less than 10 minutes. TSA did have 9 people call out, but things are flowing smoothly as we look at the situation right now. So there's the latest from the guy who runs B&A, Doug Crulin. All right, back to the domestic attacks. Here we go. You may have seen this yesterday. A Michigan Temple Israel wannabe car bomber who rammed into preschool ID'd as a Lebanese American granted citizenship under Obama. The maniac, this is from New York Post, the maniac who drove a vehicle full of explosives through a preschool at a Michigan synagogue in an anti-Semitic attack Thursday has been identified as a naturalized U.S. citizen from Lebanon, federal officials announced. The wannabe car bomber, it didn't go off, who died after it caught on fire, but it didn't explode. The wannabe car bomber who died after smashing through the doors of the Temple Israel in West Bloomfield was identified as Ayman Mohammed Ghazali, 41 years old. He's married to a U.S. citizen, entered the U.S. through Detroit in 2011, became a U.S. citizen himself in 2016. He entered the United States in May of 2011 at Detroit Metropolitan International Airport on an immigrant visa as the spouse of a U.S. citizen after alien relative and fiancé petitions filed in December of 2009 were approved. And there's that. Let's see what else we know about the guy. Armed driver was found dead inside his car, which was loaded with mortar shells, after the temple security opened fire when they plowed through the entrance. The explosive-laden truck caught on fire, with aerial footage from local outlets showing smoke billowing from the building in the aftermath of the attack. Miraculously, oh, thank goodness, no students or staff member were harmed in the attack and were swiftly evacuated from the building. Police said the lead security guard was struck by the car and rushed to a nearby hospital, and he is expected to recover from those injuries. We got lucky. It didn't go off, just like the attack at Gracie Mansion in New York. We got lucky. It didn't go off. But, and thank goodness that they had a plan. I read another story, well, maybe I'll find it here in a minute, where they said that the folks at this synagogue had gone through FBI special training to be ready for these kinds of things. Just headline, let's see. Driver dead after vehicle ramming attack in Michigan synagogue. Oakland County Sheriff Mike Bouchard said the driver breached the facility by driving it through the doors. He apparently drove the vehicle down a hallway before security responded and stopped him. They found that the vehicle was packed with all kinds of explosives, but it didn't explode. It just caught on fire, and the fire department was able to put it out. I mean, there's damage, but at least no lives were lost beyond the life of the person who carried out the attack. Stopped by security. Good job, you. FBI investigating Michigan synagogue targeted attack of violence. In the Wall Street Journal. This is a pretty good take on it. The incident unfolded just after noon at Temple Israel, a Reformed Jewish synagogue in West Bloomfield Township, about 20 miles northwest of Detroit. FBI had no information to share on motive, said Jennifer Runyon, special agent in charge of the agency in Detroit. One security officer was injured when he got knocked down by the vehicle. 30 law enforcement officers went to the hospital to be treated for smoke inhalation after the suspect's car caught fire in the building. Law enforcement officials said the suspect's body was badly burned. Synagogue's preschool was in session at the time of the attack, according to State Rep Noah Arbit, who's a member of that particular synagogue. That such an attack would occur here in my synagogue in my own community is just my worst nightmare. I was bar mitzvahed at this temple, and it is where I held a big hate crime town hall last year. The synagogue said the school's teachers kept the 140 students safe and calm. You know, this would be a good time. I mean, I think we have a lot of people on spring break right now. This would be a good time to review your security plans. I don't want to be a nervous Nelly, but we need to be aware. There are people who got into this country who do not have our best interest at heart. And they are riled up about what they're seeing on their TV screens. A lot of indications that the Iranians have even sent secret code to people who may be buried in sleeper cells saying, get after it. So we need to be very, very alert. Another story is what happened at Old Dominion University. There was a shooting. Court documents show less than 2 years after Mohammed Baylar Jola was released from prison for attempting to aid the Islamic State, he opened fire in a classroom at Virginia's Old Dominion University on Thursday before ROTC students subdued and killed him. I'll give you more on that in just a moment. Right now, time for a quick check of weather and traffic on Super Talk 99.7. Looking for a high today of around 65. A bit chilly right now. We're approaching about 40 degrees. Going to be nice on Saturday, rain on Sunday. Cold weather is coming back on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday of next year. Talking about the situation at Virginia's Old Dominion University. The individual who carried out the attack before he was killed, his name is Mohammed Baylar Jola. He pleaded guilty in October of 2016 to providing material support to a designated foreign terrorist organization, the Islamic State Group. A federal judge sentenced him in 2017 to an 11-year term with credit for time served, retroactive to his 2016 arrest. He was released from federal custody in December 23rd of 2024. It wasn't immediately clear why his release from prison was moved up. What in the world are they thinking? Inmates can get time off their sentences for a variety of reasons. It's not known if that happened in this particular case. He was on supervised release, which is basically probation. When he carried out the attack on Thursday, based on his release date, that would have run into 2029. His 2016 plea came after a 3-month sting operation in which he, then 26, confessed to an undercover FBI agent that he was thinking about carrying out an attack similar to the 2009 shootings in Fort Hood, which left 13 people dead. Authorities launched the 2016 operation after Jola made contact with Islamic State members in Africa earlier that year. I remember this case. He later told the informant that the Islamic State group had asked if he wanted to participate in the attack. He tried to donate $500 to the group, but the money actually went into an account controlled by the FBI. Then tried to buy an AR-15 assault rifle from a Virginia gun store, but was turned away. So you get this guy, and you put him away, and then you let him out early? I want to know more about that judge, and I want to know how those decisions were made. JustTheNews.com on this. Officials identify Virginia shooter as someone convicted of providing material support to ISIS. Officials identified the suspected shooter as a former Army National Guard member who previously convicted of providing material support to ISIS. Not immediately clear how he died, but FBI Director Kash Patel said a group of students stepped in and subdued him. Special Agent Dominique Evans told reporters in news briefing that Jola broke into an ROTC classroom in the Virginia school and shouted, Allahu Akbar. Officials said Jola was involved in the 2016 murder U.S. military personnel, a plot to murder them. So, no motive in that particular shooting. Soros back. This is from FoxNews.com.
Brian, I was going to add on about you said you weren't aware of how the shooter was killed?
I haven't heard the details, no.
Apparently it was the ROTC students tackled him to the ground and he was stabbed. I saw somewhere 22 times with a knife.
Wow.
In retaliation.
Holy moly. They didn't mess around, did they?
They were not happy that he killed their instructor. No, sir.
I hear that. Soros-backed DA sparks backlash after blaming Old Dominion shooting on pro-gun lawmakers. City of Norfolk's Commonwealth Attorney, Raman Fatehe, I believe it is, says gun lobby is denying the truth about how its gun absolutism is fueling mass attacks like the campus attack at Dominion University on Thursday. The George Soros-backed district attorney in Norfolk, Virginia, where Thursday's mass shooting of Old Dominion University took place, doubled down on his viral comments, saying community members looking to place blame on the shooting should direct it not to the person who carried out the attack, not to the people who motivated him to take out the attack. It's the guns. We need to do something about the guns. Every time. Are they predictable or what? Newsmax. 3 brothers nabbed in Norway, U.S. Embassy bombing. Norwegian police said on Wednesday they apprehended 3 suspects after Sunday bombing at the U.S. Embassy in Oslo. 3 brothers in their 20s, originally of Iraqi descent and living in Norway for several years, were arrested in connection with the case. The 2 were taken into custody at their home in Oslo. A third was arrested in the city as he's on his way to home from work. The powerful early morning blast from an improvised explosive device damaged the entrance to the embassy's consular section but caused no injuries. They are suspected of terror bombing, and that is, of course, again, in Norway. And amid that, as the backdrop, shocked, stunned, and amazed that we have a situation where the TSA is not being fully funded, and nor is the Department of Homeland Security. And there's a lot of things going on there, but there's also a fight going on over the SAVE Act. We'll get into all of that coming up in the second half hour of this hour, coming up in just a bit. But right now, it's 22 minutes past the hour of 6 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7.
Well, as Brian has been reporting, another shooting on a college campus. Also a sexual predator convicted in Sumner County and a suspected road rage shooting here in Nashville. That's all coming up at 6:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. We are coming up on 6:30. I'm Jay Harper with your top stories, a traffic report, and a weekend weather forecast. They're coming up. 2 people are dead and 2 students at a Virginia university are hurt after an attack on an ROTC class. One of those killed is the attacker. ABC's Jacqueline Lee has the story.
A deadly campus shooting at Old Dominion University in Norfolk, Virginia, being investigated as an act of terror. Authorities say shots rang out just before 11 a.m.
All of a sudden we heard a commotion. A lot of people rumbling, starting to get up. We started running, and that's when we heard gunshots.
The FBI identifying the gunman as 36-year-old Mohammed Jallo, a former member of the Virginia National Guard.
Army Lieutenant Colonel Brandon Shaw was shot and killed in this attack. The FBI says that ROTC students subdued Jallo and rendered him no longer alive. That a quote from the FBI. A Hendersonville man here in Middle Tennessee has been convicted by a jury for repeatedly sexually abusing children over more than a decade in Tennessee and Texas. Matthew Cody Ball, 36 years of age, was found guilty yesterday in Sumner County Circuit Court. He was found guilty of continuous sexual abuse of a child, 9 counts of child rape, 1 count of rape, 2 counts of aggravated sexual battery, and 1 count of statutory rape by an authority figure. The jury, they only had to deliberate 20 minutes after a 4-day trial. And also, Metro Nashville police are investigating a potential road rage shooting in West Nashville. Police responded to the 2300 block of West End Avenue at about 8:15 last night after reports of a shooting. Police got there and said they found a man suffering from a gunshot wound in a crashed vehicle that was just outside of the Papa John's on West End. The victim was taken to an area hospital with what police believe are non-life-threatening injuries. They are investigating the shooting as a possible road rage incident, and there are no suspects at this time. That's the latest news. We have traffic and weather next. I'm Jay Harper, WTN News. Still working to clear this crash up in Robertson County. This is I-24 eastbound just before exit 19. You've got stop-and-go traffic all the way from exit 11. So what is that? 8 miles worth of traffic. So you're going to be dealing with that. We also have an injury crash near the Joelton area. Whites Creek Pike at Coopertown Road. And keep in mind the SEC men's basketball tournament going on in downtown Nashville. If you're going to be around today or through the weekend, it's going to be nuttier than usual with the traffic downtown. We've got your traffic every 10 minutes every morning on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
It's 36 minutes past the hour of 6 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. Brian Wilson in for Dan Mandis. He'll return on Monday. I'll be filling in for Chris Hand. So I hope if you've enjoyed what I've been doing in Dan's absence, I hope you'll join me for that at 9 o'clock on Monday. This is also, if you haven't noticed it yet, if you haven't looked at your calendar, it is Friday the 13th. Are you a superstitious man, Sam?
Not really.
Yeah. I'm not a particularly superstitious individual, but I remember this is what, when you're in local TV, like I was when I first started in the business, really, my first TV job was in Amarillo, Texas. Goofy things you come up with because, there's some days there just ain't much that happens in Amarillo, Texas. You got to fill the newscast. So they came up with this goofy idea. Go try to find out if people are superstitious or not. So I took my camera guy down there and we went to the mall and we worked with the mall. They knew what we were doing. They were complicit in the whole thing. We set up a gigantic ladder at the end of the mall where people would go in and out through one of the automatic doors that would slide open, right? So if you wanted to leave the mall to go outside to your car, you either had to go under the ladder to the automatic door, or you sort of had to circumvent around to the side doors and open the ones that actually opened up like a regular door.
So you were preying on the superstitious?
Yeah, I was. And then we put the camera in a place where it couldn't be seen. We just watched. Nobody would go under that ladder. No one. I mean, the people would practically break their necks when they realized, oh my gosh, I'm about to go under a ladder, and they would go around it. It was, and you go and talk to them. Well, I'm not particularly superstitious, but they wouldn't walk under the ladder. There was nobody on the ladder. It's just a big ladder. No, it was fun to watch, and interesting how people, they are superstitious.
You should have followed it up with a black cat. Like if they avoided the ladder, then they had to walk past the black cat.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's hard to control a cat. I can control a ladder. You can't control a cat. So anyway, all right. The thing is that people will say that they're not superstitious, but I also think that honestly, I hate to say this. I hate to be a worrywart, but I am. And it seems to me that if you're a terrorist in this country, like 9/11, that was chosen for a particular reason. 9/11, 9/11. What about, Friday the 13th? I just feel like this will be a day that you should keep your head on a swivel.
Dun, dun, dun.
Well, I mean, am I overreacting or not? I mean, do you think that, if I were a terrorist, I'd wait till Friday the 13th to carry out my attack?
Yeah, I see the validity in it. I mean, 911 a little bit more widely known as 911, our emergency line. But, if you're caught up on the American culture of Friday the 13th, the movies surrounding it and all the superstitions, I could see in a prominent metropolitan area something going down.
Yeah, well, so, I don't want to wish that on anybody. We've been pretty good at taking out these threats, but, there has been a loss of life, and it is a very sad thing. And against that backdrop, we don't have money going to anybody who works at key parts of DHS. The TSA doesn't get a paycheck today. It's payday for them, and they don't get a red cent because there's no money. Because the Democrats are are not happy, and they don't want to fund DHS anymore. Well, the part of DHS that they don't want to fund is funded through, I think, 2029. They've already got the ICE and the Border Patrol have money to fund their operations through 2029. When you deny the DHS budget, you are denying things like the TSA. I don't know. I sort of want my TSA on their tippy toes today. I sure do. I don't want them, grumbling about how I didn't get paid today. I want them focused on the job at hand, not how they're going to pay for groceries. This is outrageous what the Democrats are doing. And it's going to bite them on the butt. I mean, I really fear that. I really do. I think it could well do, and I think, well, I don't fear it. I think that would be the right thing. They should be, have to pay a price for the stupid thing they're doing. So here's the story. By the way, I mentioned again, I heard from Doug Crulin out at B&A. Even though, TSA people aren't getting paid today, they did have a few people who called in sick, about 9 of them, but they say that the checkpoints are running smoothly today and wait times are less than 10 minutes. Things are going pretty good right now over at B&A. But that's because these people are patriotic Americans from Middle Tennessee, and, they're taking the hit. It's not fair and it's not right, and it's the Democrats' fault. Transportation Security Administration workers set to miss their first full paycheck today as efforts to negotiate a bipartisan compromise to reopen the Department of Homeland Security have stalled in Congress. Nearly 4 weeks into the partial government shutdown, the third to affect DHS employees in recent months. That'd be irritating. Both parties are digging in their heels and holding out hope that their constituents will reward them for refusing to yield in the standoff. Democrats say they're willing to fund many of the agencies housed under the DHS, including TSA, but will not vote to fund immigration and customs enforcement and Border Patrol without significant reforms to their operations. Meanwhile, many say those demands are non-starters and accuse Democrats of rebuffing efforts to sit down and negotiate. But against the backdrop of a divided Congress, TSA officers are forced to work without pay as Air Force face extended wait times and flight delays, disruptions that are expected to worsen as lawmakers remain at an impasse. From thehill.com, Democrats block bill to reopen Homeland Security amid 27-day shutdown. Senate Democrats on Thursday defeated a motion to proceed to a House-passed bill to reopen the Department of Homeland Security and end the 27-day shutdown that has hampered the functions of the Transportation Security Administration and other critical agencies. The motion failed by a vote of 51 to 46. Centrist Senator John Fetterman of Pennsylvania, the only Democrat to vote with Republicans to advance the funding bill, it needed 60 votes to advance. Marked the 4th time since February 12th that Democrats have blocked to vote Homeland Security funding legislation. Senate fails. This is Newsmax. Senate fails to end standoff over DHS funding. Senate Democrats failed in a bid on Thursday to fund the Transportation Security Administration as Republicans demand lawmakers approve funding for the entire Homeland Security Department. Senate on Thursday set to take a procedural vote. They didn't get there. Senator Rand Paul of Kentucky told Newsmax on Thursday that the Senate should hold a vote on the Save America Act so that lawmakers are forced to publicly declare their positions on election integrity. Different issue, but it talks a little bit about how dysfunctional the swamp is right now. It's not good. I want to get into, where we are, not only on, trying to get the DHS funding through, but where we are on this USA, the Save America Act, the voter ID bill, and we'll get into that. We got to take a quick break right now for a look at what's happening with traffic and weather. Look for a high today of around 65 degrees. Should be a pretty decent day. It's right around 40 degrees now in Metro Nashville. Saturday, nice day, 71. Sunday, rain and 73. And then it turns cold. It turns bitter cold. We're going to be Monday, a overnight low of 27. Tuesday, an overnight low of 22. Wednesday gets a little better, 31, but still below freezing overnight. Bring in the tomato plants. That's all I can tell you is, don't plant them yet. Cover them up if you got them out there. Tender vegetation must be protected. So there you have that. All right. Let's talk. We got all kinds of dysfunction in the swamp right now. On one hand, you got this vote that took place. Why can't we fund the DHS? Why is the TSA not being funded? At this particular juncture, you're in a war with Iran, and Iran has told sleeper cells to get active, and we're not funding the freaking TSA? It's just not right. And if something happens, God forbid that something happens, there's only one side of the equation that should be blamed. Just one. This is ridiculous. Okay, getting to the voter ID bill. Senator Rand Paul told Newsmax on third. Before I do this, let me just play this clip. Let me find it. Where is it? Ted Cruz.